Hello, fellow panelists, and good afternoon to everyone over here. Extremely happy to see that we are all having a very constructive Sunday, and after lunch especially. So let me just dive into the topics that we have for today's panel discussion. Of course, the ADR industry has been evolving, has been stable and unstable both in the last decade or so in India. And a lot of students are very attracted to entering into this industry and starting practice from here, knowing very little of the complexities involved. So from your experience, let's start with Divyam. Of course, we've seen the arbitration sector develop, and the courts of India have been extremely proactive in encouraging arbitration in contracts. But we've also seen that the industry has been subjected to constant uncertainties. What would be your view on the emerging landscape of ADR in India?
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. I said good afternoon. So I think just before I start my session, in 17th century USA, there used to be mill workers who were made to work on midnight shifts. Those shifts became popular as graveyard shifts. Now post-lunch sessions in these conferences have become the graveyard shifts. So we'll try to keep it as brief and as topical. To coming to your point, ADR, I think the two most important ones are mediation and arbitration. We have seen something, a good development in mediation, which I'm sure Iram is going to talk about. She's the champion for that. And on the arbitration, I would classify them into good, bad and ugly. The good has been that there is, of course, some very good decisions from Supreme Court. There is the Arbitration Bar of India now, which is streamlining the process. There is a big movement towards institutionalizing arbitration. Now there is an institution coming up literally in every state. Some of them are doing phenomenal work. There is a lot of cross-border disputes which are happening. India is becoming popular. There have been some good decisions where there are certainties attached to it. However, recently we faced, which brings me to the bad, is the decision of the Honorable Supreme Court of India in the DMRC case, where they allowed a curative and set aside an arbitral award. And we were just discussing that it was 7 years and 6 forums later you realize that your award, there is no certainty attached to it. While it was a domestic award, the uncertainty even goes till the foreign shores. A similar thing, one can't rule out a possibility that at a later point of time a foreign award faces a similar consequence. So that's not good for the Indian landscape. You expect some certainty. If you need to compete with Singapore, London and Dubai of the world, you need to have some certainty attached to it. You need to make it a more attractive jurisdiction. So that's the bad. The ugly is what just happened, and let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that it does not happen, is the circular which was issued recently by the Government of India, where they have, while thankfully given some impetus to mediation, but on the arbitration they're literally putting a red flag. They're not, they're giving an idea, don't proceed with it. The Arbitration Bar of India and the Indian Arbitration Forum has now written to them. Hopefully they'll come up with some kind of a view, try to taper down that circular, bring the expectation down. Otherwise it's, sorry? Some saving grace. Yeah, some saving grace. Otherwise we are looking at it as a death nail for arbitration, because the biggest litigant in India is the government. One good thing that has happened just recently, let's see how it pans out, is the decision which was taken by the Bar Council of India and the UK government, which just happened a week back, wherein they have discussed, and hopefully they'll come up with some regulation. Most importantly for the law students, it's a very important news to follow. as that would really set the standard if the foreign law firms are actually allowed to come to India. There is definitely going to be an increase in competition, and hopefully the law students can thrive out of it. So that's like the few bits I have on.
All right, thanks Divyam. Of course, we've seen that India has come a long way in the last couple of years, but can we call ourselves stable as of now? No, we can't really do that. But are we heading in the right direction? Hopefully, if all goes as per track. But of course, in the middle, just like every other jurisdiction, India also experienced the COVID pandemic. And because of the pandemic, us as lawyers had to get ourselves used to a new way of working, where suddenly there was conversation about AI or virtual hearings which didn't exist. So Mehak, I would like to ask you, is adapting to virtual hearings, for example, law firms also increasingly resorted to softwares for document management or for drafting of pleadings. What role, according to you, does technology play in modern ADR, and how can lawyers leverage online dispute resolution platforms and AI to enhance their practice?
So I think technology plays a very, very vital role now in ADR. I think the obvious would be your optimizing your data management, analyzing data, document review, contract management, selection of arbitrators, and making it simpler for mediators to come up with creative solutions. But I think it goes deeper than that. I think we still don't have enough foresight into what's going to happen. We're looking at legal hearings in the metaverse. We're looking at evidence being submitted in digital form, which doesn't mean that's just in soft copy. It is in the form of reconstruction, animations, simulations. We're looking at blockchain technology in ADR as well. So I think in times to come, probably court is not going to be a place anymore. It's going to be a service. So yeah, there's a lot that's coming up, and I think the law students need to be geared up and brace themselves for the new era. What's got you here is not going to get you there.
All right. Well, of course, as lawyers, we're very used to working with our hard copies and have a very tough time getting used to laptops and in virtual soft copy briefs
now.
So we're all getting used to working on laptops and iPads more than our physical briefs. Let me go back to the painful circular which was circulated, as Divyam pointed out, and let's throw some light on that. We are increasingly, as all of us might agree, that we are constantly faced by a question from clients, that is arbitration really that effective? Whether it may be cost or whether it may be time. So Tejas, I would like to ask you that because of so many uncertainties in the legislative perspective of ADR, I think larger floodgates have opened for discussions on how effective ADR really is. So what are some common misconceptions about ADR that we can clarify for the students entering the industry, and how can lawyers and legal educators work best to gain a better understanding of ADR methods?
Thanks, Kanika. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, it's a bit surprised when we saw the circular. When I spoke to the stakeholders in the government, they tried to justify by saying it is only for the public procurement contract and doesn't apply to all the government contract. But the answer to their justification is that EPC contract includes procurement, and most of the construction contracts are EPC contracts. So how do you justify saying that it only applies to procurement contracts and not to the other? Now the finance ministry and the law ministry are two different entities within the government where they try to keep themselves separate. Now law ministry is also saying that we have nothing to do with that circular, which is also concerning because finance ministry does not have the power to pass such kind of circular. So there are certain fundamental issues with regard to the jurisdiction of that circular. We have raised concerns on behalf of the Arbitration Bar of India, and also CII has written a communication to the ministry to look into this circular, because the circular is based on a lot of misconception about the arbitration, and the one being that it is time consuming, second is it's very costly, third is that the arbitrators are not applying the law, fourth is that the courts are interfering too much. Now we have answers to that. We have already worked on those issues, which are the major concerns about the arbitration is that it is taking time. We have the timelines in place. We are not even now spending time on Section 9. Once the tribunal is constituted, we refer the matter to the arbitral tribunal for interim measures. For Section 29A takes care of the timelines, and the courts are extending the timelines only in the cases where there is a justifiable grounds. Even in terms of challenge to the award and enforcement, yes, it is taking a lot of time. For that, we need to have dedicated bench in each jurisdiction. Now in Delhi High Court, from tomorrow we are going to have 3 separate arbitration benches. Earlier it used to be both suits, original side. Now original side is divided into arbitration, IP and the suits. So that is a positive development as far as Delhi is concerned. We are seeing a lot of changes in terms of the original side, judges deciding 34s and also ensuring that 36 enforcement matters are decided at the earliest. Plus the institutional arbitration is something, a great answer to that, starting from the appointment till the passing of the award. Institution can oversee the process of arbitration. So if we select the institutional arbitration, then all these answers can be there. From the government's perspective, it is again a big concern, because they are saying that anything less than 10 crores will go to arbitration, anything more than 10 crores will go to the litigation. Now courts are overburdened. If we compare courts and statistics, there is no time available. In the previous session also we were hearing that the courts are overburdened. We don't have judges who are equipped to handle this kind of workload, and especially more than 10 crores you'll have a heavy documentation, evidence, and all that will not be possible. Now the other way to work around it, which the government has not realized, is that you will have multiple arbitrations for the same contract less than 10 crores. So how would you avoid that? Because if you have an arbitration clause and you want to initiate arbitration, you will ensure that your claim is less than 10 crores and you can still go for arbitration. So those are the loopholes in this circular. Of course, mediation is tried to be promoted, but the answer to that also is that you can have multi-tiered dispute resolution clauses where you go for mediation first, fail, or have a hybrid of med or ab kind of dispute resolution mechanisms. So the core of the issue is in drafting of the good effective arbitration clause, going for institutional arbitration, and having dedicated benches in the court to decide the issues arising out of the arbitration. I don't think we need this kind of circulars, and over a period of time we will ensure that some clarity is brought about in terms of this kind of circulars.
All right. I think all of us very much agree with what Tejas has said over here. And that gives us a good macro view of how arbitration works. Now let's go a bit into the micro aspects. Iram, for example, if I talk about a construction arbitration, many a times as a lawyer, we put together the best team of technical experts, lawyers who understand technical contracts, prepare our submissions accordingly, and most of the construction infrastructure contracts are highly technical for that matter. But many a times I think an issue that we have to face in ADR generally is whether the forum that we're presenting before is understanding the technicalities of the matter which is being discussed. So let me ask you that as mediation and arbitration are becoming increasingly preferred methods of dispute resolution, what steps can be taken to enhance the quality of the mediators and arbitrators to perform their job during the hearings, as well as to help India-seated arbitrations come at par with international standards?
Thank you so much, Kanika. And before I give my answer, I would like to acknowledge the presence of teachers from the different colleges and the students. So whatever I'll be speaking, it is not only for the students but also for the teachers, because the students, if suppose whatever I'll be saying, it is not possible without the hand-holding of the teachers and the colleges. The first thing is that we have to see that there's a drastic change is happening in the world of ADR, in this universe. And the only thing is we need to develop a good pool of arbitrators and mediators. That is not possible without having a good trainings. So if I talk about the training, it is not just a certificate course which we keep across, in one day or other day. It is not just that kind of trainings. If I am seeing the trainings, and you have to understand, many students, they fall into that pit and they see that, okay, this person is teaching in this training program, this person is teaching in this training program, I should offer that. So I should go for this training. So you have to understand the importance of that certificate, whether that certificate will take you somewhere or not. If that certificate is just a paper, it's not going to take you anywhere. That I just ask you not, I just recommend you not to go for those trainings unless those training programs will impanel you somewhere, will give you some work, or will give you accreditation. That is something which is very important. Accreditations are different from the certifications or the certificate course. So if you see globally, why the people are now doing in ICC mediations, ICC arbitrations, and CIAC and all, because they have good accreditations. If you see Tejas sir's name, in front of his name you will read FCIR. So that is a kind of accreditation. If you read my name, there is an MCR, ACIA, IMI, these are the accreditations. You have to achieve those accreditations to get or to achieve international level. So because these are the things which has not been told to you by the colleges and all. So that is why in my initial thing I told you that the college should also make sure that these kind of accreditations should be given to the students. Second thing is that I would like to say networking and collaboration. Networking and collaboration is something which is very, very important at your stage. Don't feel that after completion of my law, I'll be going for the, networking and all, and after that only I'll be meeting with the people. See, network is more important than your work, or equally important as your work. So don't miss on that. Integration of technology. That is also something which is very important. It was Mehak has mentioned, and she has emphasized on the AI thing and all. So integration of the technology is very important. Now these days in ADR, people are doing virtual mediations and virtual arbitrations, and they are claiming that it is online arbitration as mediation. See, that is not online. Online means dedicated platform to perform these kind of arbitrations and mediations. It's not something which is virtual. So you have to understand that how to use a dedicated platform or how to develop the dedicated platform. Third thing which is very important is, and it is important for the industry, for the users, for the students, for the teachers, and for practitioners as well, that there should be ethical code of conduct we should follow. By having all these things, we can achieve, the standard, because this practice liberates jurisdiction. It's a global profession. You have to understand that. By sitting over here, I'm doing mediation under ICC rules, directly appointed by Paris head office. So how it is possible? Because we follow certain code of conducts, we know what are the ethics of this game or ethics of this profession. So we have to understand that. Even in the Singapore Convention, I do not know how many of you know about the Singapore Convention, which is the Convention for the Enforcement of Settlement of International Mediation Settlement Agreement. See, in the Singapore Convention, the one of the most important ground for the refusal for the enforcement is that if the award is, the settlement agreement is non-comprehensible, and if it is not, if the mediator breached the code of conduct, but we don't know what is the code of conduct. We don't follow any kind of code of conduct. We have no understanding of that. So these are the things I think we need to understand. If I summarize the trainings, accreditations, integration of technology, ethical code of conduct, collaboration, networking, and last thing I would like to say, the mentor. You need to have good mentor, who can give you a clear idea and who can hold your hand. So this is what my take on this.
All right, thanks Iram. I think that's very, very helpful for all the students and teachers sitting here. But now that we're talking about technology, we'll take our last question with Pavit. Lawyers haven't spoken about technology as much as they've spoken after COVID. Suddenly everyone has iPads and virtual briefs with them. But on the other hand, we have also seen a lot of technology-driven disputes. Issues such as data privacy, issues of intellectual properties or smart contracts that Mehak also pointed out that we have seen so much of a development there. What are the general issues that crop up with the newer age technology contracts or issues that companies are facing on that side? And that's one part of the question. And the other part of the question is that what can students who are entering this industry do best to become as tech savvy as now we are or we are attempting to be?
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we are short on time, so I'll just keep it short. So as you said, as Mehak also said, technology is everywhere. So every industry has adopted technology, which has resulted in more complex disputes. Because as you would remember, when internet came, everyone was worried about it, like how it's going to affect our lives. And then over the years, it has almost been part of every sphere of our life. Similarly, any new technology which comes, be it AI, smart contracts, blockchain, they are going to affect us in a major way. And obviously, the disputes will also be very complex. So what we need to do to handle such kind of disputes, obviously courts are still not, Indian courts at least are not at that level that they can handle such complex disputes. So that's why ADR is preferred in tech disputes, and it can range from an IP issue, a cyber breach, a data privacy issue, a data which now everyone is worried about. Every time we open our phone, there are 1,000 impressions which are made based on our one move. So all these, then you have obviously smart contracts, which is combined with blockchain. You have the AI. Everyone is worried about AI. Will it take my job away? Obviously for lawyers, for law students, it will not take your job away, but you have to use it. Otherwise you will become, you'll not be valid anymore. Like you have to adopt it. It's a good servant, so you should use it. Anyone who's not using it will be falling behind. And even the traditional M&A disputes wherein, the technology is involved, there also the ADR has a lot of scope because these are all tech-related disputes wherein we don't want our data or the technology to be out in the open in the court. You want to do it in a confidential manner. So all these kind of disputes would definitely lead to a point where ADR is preferred for tech disputes. And I believe that especially for budding lawyers or the students, it's important for them to also adopt technology and ensure that they're also learning how ADR works. I've heard whole day we were talking about, going to courts, spending some time there. Don't forget going to an arbitration, learning how a mediation is done. Also negotiation, I think a lot of us don't realize that every agreement these days have a clause which says before a dispute, have 15 days to, have discussed between the two parties, and that helps a lot. I've seen it from both from the side of a practicing lawyer now being in-house. Sometimes a lot of disputes get resolved those ways. So for students, I'll say adopt technology, try to do internships, watch such mediations, arbitrations. ODR again was raised by Iram. That will be the next big thing. A lot of dispute will be handled online. You will have these companies having their ODR setups wherein if you have a problem, instead of going to a consumer court, you may get a resolution through ODR. So for all students, it's relevant to adopt all these technologies and be prepared for the future.
All right, that was very helpful. I don't think we have much time to take another round of questions because I think half an hour is too less to cover the topic that we have here. But before we proceed to closing remarks, if there are any questions from the audience, we can take that now. Yeah.
Very relevant question. I didn't have time, otherwise I would have definitely spoken about forensics. Any tech dispute would involve forensic because everything happens on a digital sphere. Physically you can go house and search, but in a tech world that doesn't work. Forensic is the next thing. These days companies are spending lakhs of rupees to ensure they have systems wherein they can store digital data, and tomorrow if there's a forensic team which can check for evidences, who has written what was the whole process. So forensics are here to stay along with audits. So for any tech disputes, forensics are here, and anyone who wants to study forensics. When I started my career, I was very much interested. I could hack a smaller system. I could spoof emails just for the, like an ethical hacker. I'm sure Pavit ji is here. He can speak on it for hours and hours. But definitely forensics, you have to learn forensic. As a lawyer, you should also understand it works because you have to explain it to the judge or the arbitrator how it works. So very relevant to our context, and forensics should be again learned by everyone if they have time and
yeah, and I can add to that is you asked about electronic evidence. Now electronic evidence is part of every proceedings now, even in the court or the arbitration, where you have to prove the digitally stored information. How do you do it? Because ultimately it is in the hard drive with the original is there. You have to prove it by way of producing a copy which is authenticated by way of a procedure which is laid down under the law under 65B, and now from tomorrow another section. So that way we'll have to see that we have forensic audit done by an authenticated expert who can come as an expert to prove before the court or the arbitral tribunal that the data or the information which is produced before the court or the tribunal is authenticated. So authenticity is very important for proving electronic evidence. You can give the certificate and if it is done by the forensic auditor, then it adds value to the entire electronic evidence.
From the association to come forward and say we'll make it credible. If one party is distrusting, and secondly, it suggests mediation. Mediation by section 6 read with the schedule, please read paras 5, 6, 7, 8 and 11, 12 of that, rules out literally every contract in public procurement. It's a complete vacuum they have created, and I'm surprised that you've not picked that up. So I'd love to hear what you
that's a great comment. See, we are already working on, so that's what I started by saying that it's a misconception in which the government is working on. Government itself is coming up with the Arbitration Council of India. They are in process of formulating Arbitration Council of India. They will accredit the arbitrators. They will set up the entire system as per the law. So government is only answering the questions which the government is posing to itself. They are saying that we don't trust the arbitrators, we don't trust the process. That is not correct. The correct way of doing it is to strengthen. As far as bar is concerned, we are consolidating ourselves, the Arbitration Bar of India, where Attorney General and the Solicitor General are the patrons, also shows involvement of the government, saying that yes, we have a consolidated bar where we will give priority to arbitration and not give priority to litigation if we have a conflict. So those are the steps we are already taking. It's been overlooked. It's an aberration where we feel that right information provided to the stakeholders will, yes, you are right. Ultimately, we have to build trust and confidence in the public sector undertaking. That can only come by fixing certain things which we already know the answers of. So it's not that we don't know and we are going to search for the answers. We know the answers, we are already taking steps, and if we do it in a right way, I'm sure it's going to be an effective way to assuage the concerns. The second thing about mediation. The mediation is a non-concessional thing. It cannot replace arbitration. It is an additional thing. It's an additional dispute resolution mechanism which complements arbitration in a big way. If we talk about Singapore, they have used it to the maximum advantage with the Singapore Convention being there. There we are a signatory, but we have not incorporated that into the cross-border in our Mediation Act. We have the Mediation Act. Mediation Council of India is going to come, and we are going to use mediation and arbitration both together, and we can't use it as an alternative to each other. So I'm sure with all the right answers to the stakeholders, we can definitely answer to all the concerns with regard to the public sector not having trust in the system of arbitration.
All right. So we'll wrap up this session. I'll just take one round for each of you to give one tip in one line to the students who are entering the career of ADR. What would be your 2 cents on it? Just one tip in one line.
I'll start with it. So, so for students, I believe they need to first decide what they want to do throughout their life. ADR is a very good career prospects where you can know with certainty that you are going to use your time constructively for advising on a commercial disputes. It's not easy. It involves drafting skills. It involves the procedural aspects of that, and you need a lot of training for that. One is that you get trained in all these courses which Iram mentioned, and also on the job. So you have to work with somebody who is doing ADR practice over a period of time and see that you like that practice to do it. Of course, internship helps in your student career, and after that you should choose an office or a firm where you can develop your skills into ADR practice. And one more thing which I would like to add is, as Pavit mentioned about technology. Technology is here to stay. We are surviving because of technology in ADR. So ADR and technology goes hand in hand, and we have to use best use of the technology as student from the student life itself. So when you come into practice, you will be expert in using technology for ADR mechanisms.
Iram?
Yeah, so from my side, you should have patience, and you should be consistent. You should not change or believe in 2 minutes relationship, senior and junior. And if you are joining somewhere as an intern and all, please try to give at least 3 months in every internship. If you feel that 4 weeks are enough, that is not enough, because 4 weeks the senior will understand you and you will understand that place. At least 3 months time should be given. Keep patience, and you have to understand that place, and that place will give you a lot. Please, after your completion of your law, you have to connect with some senior where you have to again, keep patience, and you have to be there for years and years, because the tag which you keep on your forehead, that matters. If you will keep on changing the tag of your senior again and again, you will be nowhere. So you have to keep a single tag for some years, and I am sure that you will be going to get something from that place. So patience is the key.
Divyam?
So being a byproduct of internship, I'll certainly say internship is the top thing. Second, I would say for ADR and especially for lawyers who want to get into litigation, arbitration, mediation, moot courts is very important. It will help in developing court craft, it will help in developing your oratory skills. So it's important that you do focus on that. These are my two bits.
Mehak?
Okay, I have to get shorter than that now. Okay, so I had correlated with technology. So you need to evaluate and re-evaluate the usage of AI in your day jobs so that you don't become redundant. And I don't mean to scare you. It's not going to end up in unemployment. It's going to end up in redeployment. So the nature of your jobs in the legal fraternity are going to change. And two, like Iram had said earlier, networking is very important. Your network is your net worth. So it's not what you know, it is who you know. And choose your mentor. Don't wait for your mentee, for the mentor to come up and choose the mentee. Choose your mentor carefully, the one that you think can take you places. So don't wait for the mentor to come to you.
Pavit?
Yeah. Just wanted to add that ADR has a lot of scope in India, so do consider ADR as a career choice. I am sure there's a lot of scope. India is moving to a more evolved country. Just like Western countries, ADR will be very helpful.
All right, and I will copy paste everything that you all just said and just add 2 lines to it. One is, of course, getting yourself a good mentor, and I can't emphasize enough on that. Having the right mentor in the first 5 years of your career can shape up the entire career magically and beyond your belief. And second, and very importantly, is take risks. I think that is something that we all can say from experience, that taking the right risks, making the right decisions at the right time is extremely, extremely important, and getting yourself out of that comfort zone to be able to learn and grow throughout the tenure of your profession. And I think with that, we can wrap up this discussion. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you to all the speakers here.